Hi there, Stacey Marino here with I Advise College Recruiting. Today, I would like to discuss with you potential changes to how the NCAA might be determining eligibility. So I try to do these videos so you can stay informed in an ever-changing and evolving recruiting landscape. So recently, there have been some reports about the NCAA potentially making some changes to how they handle eligibility of potential college athletes. So I just want to remind everyone that currently an athlete has 5 years to compete for seasons. And there is currently no age restriction, but they are discussing making changes to that. So what's being discussed is a 5-for-5 policy. Now I know we've talked about 5-for-5 in the past. I actually have a video on it, and it was considered more seriously by the Division II cabinet, but it was kicked further down the road by Division I. Well, recently, the executive order from President Trump may have prompted new discussion. And also, I think, many requests to extend eligibility on, in court cases, and there's just been a lot of inconsistent rulings on that, have prompted Division I to take a very close look at how they determine student athlete eligibility. So here are some details of what this new 5-for-5 would look like, which, again, reminder, this has not been voted on yet and has not been adopted yet, but may be coming down the pipe pretty soon. So first of all, if it was voted upon, right now they're discussing having an eligibility clock that begins either after a student graduates high school or at their 19th birthday, whichever comes first. So that is that age restriction or timestamp at their 19th birthday. That is a new thing. The NCAA will no longer award waivers. For example, medical red shirt or hardship waiver, these would no longer be a typical thing that happens. They're very common right now, and they are discussing having the only waivers for military service, pregnancy, or religious missions. So what this would allow is a 5-year window, consecutive years in a row, starting when an athlete graduates high school or turns 19, whichever comes first. So this is a new thing, a 5-for-5, 5-year window. And again, it would be at the Division I level. And so being discussed, and this has not been passed yet. So I do have a few predictions about what might happen. First, there is a scheduled meeting with the Division I cabinet, and that is scheduled for, I believe, May 22nd. And I have read that they can implement an emergency vote if they want to. So this very well could be put to an emergency vote towards the end of May. And if adopted, I have also read that it could be in effect for next season, the 2026 season. So this really could affect college athletes and recruits very soon. I also predict that they may try to implement some phasing in order to avoid roster craziness. I don't even know how else to describe it. So, which brings me to some questions. So, in reaction to this, so a lot of people, including myself, are wondering, would current college athletes keep the current eligibility system? Would college athletes who've already exhausted 4 years, would they be granted another year if they fell within that age window? And how do they plan to phase it in order to avoid just a lot of roster disruption? So those are some questions that I have, and I know a lot of people do have. While that potential new 5-for-5 rule has been, discussed a lot and reported on, a lot recently. What hasn't really been discussed too much, at least from what I can see, it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, are some of the things that actually were approved and have been implemented. So I just wanted to talk about those really quickly. So there is a new pre-eligibility rule that bars athletes who have entered and remained in a sports draft. So specifically, what would happen is one of the rules requires prospects to withdraw from opt-in professional league drafts. This is including the NBA draft in order to be eligible to play in college. Not affected are ice hockey and baseball because those athletes do not opt in to their sports draft. And I think this is a good thing because I think what it prevents now is someone who is in a draft or plays in a G League, which is like a basketball minor league, or plays overseas in a professional league, they cannot return to college. And I think this is, in order to, again, it ties into streamlining the eligibility and why they're looking at an age window to avoid that athlete going overseas, playing for 3 years, and then returning to college. So this has been approved and implemented. In addition to the last one here, athletes are allowed to sign with agents for NIL and are allowed to accept prize money within their respective sports without impacting eligibility. So these have been passed. So again, it really impacts basketball. It impacts those athletes who have opted in to the draft for basketball or have been drafted or have played in any professional league. That would impact their eligibility with the NCAA. So, what are some of the major takeaways for recruits and their families? I always like to discuss that so this is meaningful to you. First, I think it's important that you understand what's actually been adopted and what has not, and pay attention to the news to see what the NCAA Division One cabinet is discussing, voting on, and adopting. Um, this 5 for 5 is being considered by the Division One cabinet currently, and whether Division Two and Division Three would consider moving to this new 5 for 5 age-based system is to be determined. So if you are if you're an athlete who's looking to get recruited in Division Two or Division Three, this may not affect you, at least maybe not right away, and you would want to pay attention to the policies within Division One, Two, and Three because they're not always the same. There's eventually going to be changes, so I think it's important for you all to take a closer look at a recruit's age when they graduate high school. So this may factor in when you're looking at taking a gap year after high school graduation, because with this new system, that first gap year would now count as the first year in a 5 for 5 system. It would be year number 1 of 5. Families may want to factor in this new system if they are going to look at reclassing. And I know many athletes do that for several different reasons. But you want to look at age now that age is considered, or is being considered to be a factor for eligibility. So if current athletes, college athletes gain eligibility, looking at if this is adopted and how it's phased in, if current athletes that are in college gain eligibility, that would obviously increase competition for roster spots. So as always, it's important not to get caught up in headlines, but instead make sure you do have a clear recruiting plan that is specifically designed for you. So I'll leave you with some final thoughts. First, I think recruits will need to understand their eligibility clock, especially if there are some changes. Right now, the clock begins when you become a full-time college student, and whether that's at Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO level, NAIA. There is no age-based system, and it's you can do, you can compete 4 years within 5. That potentially could change to a 5-in-5 system that would begin when you graduate high school or turn 19, whichever comes first. So those are very different things. So understanding what that looks like for you is important. Also important is understanding your playing level. This will help you target reasonable schools and include them in your target list. Also important to make sure that you are vetting the school very carefully before committing. Um, it's a very competitive, saturated market. So you don't have this, backup of, oh, I'll just transfer if I'm not happy. I really think it's important for kids to be looking for a good fit for 4 years and make that their goal instead of maybe relying on the, if I don't like it, I'll just transfer. So I advise college recruiting. We can help you. We can help navigate this very crazy recruiting environment. And we offer personalized service for athletes across all sports. We are really proud of our 100% placement rate that we've had from 2022 all the way through 2026. And if you are interested and would like a free consultation, all you have to do is go see our interest form and fill that out, and we will reach out to you right away. I hope this video was helpful.